All right. Well, Georgia's going to cover against Missouri. That game's done. Let's elsewhere in the SEC. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, where we are really wrong a lot, especially the other day. Ari, we were so wrong on so many games. But Georgia, Missouri, we gave 5 seconds to on the show. We were like, Georgia got yelled at all week by Kirby Smart after mucking around against Kent State. Of course, they'll destroy Missouri. And damned if they didn't almost lose.
I was really feeling myself on Friday night after that UCLA game because I was like, I nailed that.
Awesome.
I was like, wow. I'm feeling it. This is going to be a good weekend. I came into Saturday loving every single dog, every one of them. I thought that a lot of them were going to win outright. I was wrong at every turn. I thought that Kentucky was going to win, and they kind of did, but they didn't, right?
They covered, but they did not win, and they should have won.
Or the end of the game, if you're not listening, they threw a touchdown pass in the game's final minute and a half, and it got called back on an illegal shift, and then the following play, Levis fumbled the ball. So that, to me, I think I had the right idea. I thought NC State was going to beat Clemson. Wrong.
Nope.
I thought Iowa was going to play with
Clemson's defense looked great, by the way.
Yeah.
And DJ Uyunglele, listen, I've been very hard on him. I'm going to stop now. I thought he looked awesome.
Yeah, he did.
That throw to Shipley in the second quarter, there were a couple other throws that were just like, woo, this guy, he's feeling it now. He's comfortable.
You can win a lot of hard-fought games in college football with the guy that can take it up the middle for 5 yards any given time.
Yeah. Will Shipley's great.
Well, I was actually referring to DJ
you're talking about
too.
DJ. Yeah.
But,
and DJ on the read option, when Shipley got that after that throw to Shipley, which they ruled was down on the 1-inch line. I mean, DJ's automatic on the read option for a touchdown there.
Yeah. I was right about Illinois. I thought Illinois had a chance. That was quite the game.
When we dedicated an entire show to the possibility that Brett Bielema might go out Wisconsin, I was like, did we go too far? Were we being a little reactionary there? No, good. They killed him.
Yeah. I thought Iowa was going to play with Michigan. That didn't happen. Now, it was kind of a close game. I guess, quote unquote, close there at the end before Michigan tacked on the final touchdown. But I think at every turn, I was looking at all the spreads going into the weekend. I'm like, God, I love the dog here. I love that. Not only did they not win, a lot of them didn't cover, So we'll start off the show, and we're going to have to go through all the ones that we just kind of sped through individually. But I did not have a good feel for what was going to happen on Saturday. And the one game that we didn't even give the underdog a second thought was the Mizzou game, and they had Georgia on the rope of all ropes. So
I'll give you another one. We were like, oh yeah, Oklahoma bounces back, because I thought, okay, they lost to Kansas State. It's a styles make fights thing. Chris Kleiman beat them when Lincoln Riley coached them. It's just their defense doesn't match up well. Oh no. TCU destroyed Oklahoma, and they lost Dylan Gabriel in the game, but it really didn't matter. It wasn't anything Oklahoma's offense did or didn't do. Their defense was awful. Their defense was like 2018 level bad.
Yeah. So the one dog that I had was UCLA. They took care of business, but and I also thought that Arkansas was going to cover, and it looked like for a minute there they had a chance to win, and then the wheels fell off. So all these games are important fixtures of the Saturday, and we can start hitting them speed round one by one.
Well, before we do that though, I don't have the song to play, but I couldn't play it anyway. Jeff Sims just scored for Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets, who fired their coach on Monday, are going to come out of Pittsburgh with a win.
Are you going to sing it at least?
But they pitted, so they can't be too legit to pit.
Too legit. Well, I think it goes both ways. I don't think it matters. It's just the song is the song is a signifying tune that lets you know that Pitt will pit.
Pitted. It pitted as hard as Pitt can pit.
Yeah. And, maybe Jeff Collins, that guy, maybe he was the problem. No, actually, it was just
congratulations to Georgia Tech grad Brent Key, interim coach, offensive line coach. You know how I feel about offensive line coaches finally getting their shot. Well, guess what? He took him up to Pittsburgh and won a game.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with that. So, Dion, take a step back. You're out of the picture now. We found our guy.
That's it.
That was a really good win for them. Like that would have is that like the best win of the Jeff Collins era?
Would it have been if he'd have been there?
If he would have been there, would that have been his best win?
I think so.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's a pretty good team. So, this sport, and you tweeted something about this, and I can't remember the tweet off the top of my head. But you said Harrison Mevis.
Yes.
The kicker from Missouri.
Yes.
Missing an extra point length field goal last week to win against Auburn, drilling a 53 or something? 55-yard field goal.
And he was 5 for 5 at that point.
Put Mizzou back up by 10 points late in the second half against Georgia. What a comeback story. And I tweeted this back. I said, you said I had the body of Harrison Mevis last week? Mm-hmm. Who's laughing now, pal?
Did you see him coming off the field? Did you see the swag coming off the field?
The buffest swag I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's not about the way you look. It's about how you feel. But
listen, I used to have that body too. So yeah. I'm proud
take the
of
Mevis
anybody
body
can
tonight.
Succeed with that body.
So
this is it though. Zachary Ament tweeted this at me tonight. This is college football in a nutshell. And you say we only concentrate on the playoff and all that nonsense. No. This is what this sport is about. If I would have told you in August that after an offseason full of Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher drama, that the week of the A&M Bama game, College Game Day would be going to TCU at Kansas in a battle of unbeatens, you would have thought it was insane. But it happened. Zachary says, I love this sport.
Yes. And that's the funny thing, too. We've spent so much time, and you and I don't directly see eye to eye when it comes to the playoff expansion and what it means. But the funniest thing about it is that we spend so much time with the national championship discussion, and rightfully so. It's the national championship. But like the idiosyncrasies and the happenings that happen every single Saturday in the sport is what makes people come back. And, I had my daughter's first birthday party on a Saturday. Don't ask me who planned it, but I didn't plan it to be on a Saturday. And I was checking in as much as I could. I was supposed to mount a TV outside in the past 2 weeks, buy a TV and mount it outside for the backyard for the party.
That seems like something you're capable of doing.
Well, no, hiring somebody to do it. I just kind of dragged my feet on it, and every dude that was at my house today, and it was like 20, was like, "Where's the TV out here, man? What are we doing? Like, why is this not out here?"
I wish I see. I'm gonna be in your town tomorrow. I wish I'd come early. I would have mounted.
Well, the thing that kind of bothered or that has like dissuaded me and wanting to deal with it is that it is going to be mounted into stucco. So that kind of gives me anxiety a little bit.
Some special anchors for that.
You're going to need somebody to really come in here and know what they're doing, especially when it's outside.
You just need to buy a special drill bit and need some good anchors.
Yeah, it's going into an outdoor thing, and do I have to buy an outdoor TV? No, I don't, right? Because it's in a
you know what I did? I put our oldest TV outside because if the sun bakes it or fries it, whatever, I was going to throw it was older.
Throw it away.
I was going to throw it away anyway.
The thing that I was told
were significantly more expensive
is that you have to read your homeowner's insurance policy very closely, because if it were to start a fire for whatever reason, that you having a non-outdoor television mounted on an outdoor space causes a fire.
And that's been home improvement with Ari. Let's go to Nick Terry's question. Big picture question, gents. Has the gap closed between the top three teams in the next group? It kind of feels that way. Although, Ohio State won 49-10. Probably didn't look as good as they could look. We can talk about Greg Schiano versus Ryan Day.
Why don't we just get that out of the way right now? Let's just get it out of the way.
I don't think they were trying to show up Rutgers by running a fake punt. I think the punter, he's a rugby style punter. He got out there. I think he's probably coached to, if he sees nobody out there, he's probably coached to run to the stick.
Right. And I was like 4th and short. But, I guess the question that you texted me during the day, and I think is the kind of the theme of the day, is did the field gain traction on the halves? And Ohio State
sure looked that way in Como, Missouri.
So Ohio State supposedly is the one that's standing out as the one without any chinks in the armor, right?
Right.
But I thought that in the little that I saw of that game, and thankfully so, because it looked like a brutal game to watch, that they were kind of sleepwalking and having their clunker too. Now, their clunker wasn't against an SEC team, but it was kind of
their clunker was against Rutgers, and if you're going to have a clunker, that's a good one to have it against. And honestly,
Georgia, where they covered the spread, I guess, or hit the spread.
If you're going to have a clunker, have it against Missouri, because I don't know that Georgia gets out against some of these other teams.
Yeah, well,
if they have their clunker against them.
That's always the question with these clunker games too, Andy. Right? Like, did the clunker happen because the team they're playing isn't very good, or did the clunker happen because they were due to have one no matter who they played? And I think it's probably the former. Mm-hmm. I think teams tend to sleepwalk when they're playing against teams that don't theoretically have a chance. And like Georgia played in that entire game like a team that just kind of had its heads up its rears and never feared like they could lose, and they pushed it to the exact brink of when it was danger zone.
It felt like every time Mizzou had 3rd and 14, Georgia would do something stupid to bail them out, and Mizzou would go kick a field goal, and it would just continue. Or Georgia would get to the 5-yard line, and it was like there was a force field, and they just could not pass it and kick a field goal.
And of course they ended up winning, so that's good.
By the way, this Pitt game, not over yet. They just onside kicked. Georgia Tech's up 5. Georgia Tech recovers.
Okay.
Yellow Jackets win.
So they do win. Thank God we don't have to re-record anything. I'm running on fumes right now.
We're not re-recording anything. If I say something incredibly stupid and then I'm proven wrong 5 minutes later, we just leave it in. Think of all the stupid things we said on Friday's show. We just left them in.
Yeah, you know what? I was talking to somebody who's at our birthday party today that listens to the show. And he said, the thing that I love about your show the most, and the thing that I take most pride in, and I hope you agree with this, Andy, is we are unapologetically us. Mm-hmm. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We admit when we're wrong, and we're just having a real football conversation, and we don't treat it like we're covering the Pentagon. And I think that that's great. And like I was just joking with another friend today. It's like because people give me crap. I get DMs on Instagram and stuff. Like, you're an idiot. How did you pick this game? It's like, if I could pick the games correctly, I would not be here.
Yes. You would live in Vegas or on your own island, and we wouldn't have to work very much.
And there's certain things where you can read the tea leaves, and sometimes I wonder if my knowledge of the games or of the teams or the people who are playing actually work against me. Because I overanalyze every single thing that I think.
Well, I mean, I've just realized that, and the Harrison Mevis thing is a great example of this. These are very unpredictable. This is the most unpredictable age group.
Yeah.
Other than like 3-year-olds.
What makes it super daunting is that you can watch a player on a Saturday or a team on a Saturday look completely lost and look like they have no idea what's going on. They could lose a game or almost lose a game to somebody, and then the following week look like an entirely different player. It's like when you look at the NFL, and gambling on the NFL, it's gambling on it is so much more incredibly difficult because the teams are so close together.
Correct.
But it's not a variation of how they're going to perform. Like Jamar Chase is good. He's going to be good on Sunday next week. He was good on Thursday. He's going to be good on the Sunday after that. Mm-hmm. It's whether or not the team that they're playing also has a good day or matches up well. But in college, it's like, which one of these people is going to show up? And I don't even know how anybody can ever predict any of this stuff.
Well, you can't. I mean, this is why I keep going back to Nick Saban. The most amazing thing is getting 18 to 22-year-olds to perform in a consistent manner, because it's really, really hard. We talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago with Georgia. When is the last time they lost a game that they shouldn't have lost? And that was South Carolina in 2020. Well, they almost did it again. Like Alabama doesn't do that very. I guess A&M last year probably qualifies as Alabama losing a game it shouldn't lose, but it doesn't happen to them very often.
Yeah, the thought that you had is usually the hot thought. Get your clunker out of the way now, and then next week your coach reminds you that if you do that against an SEC team, you're going to lose, right? And like Georgia,
and then they did it again.
They did it again. And you know what, guys? They were very close to losing.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah, and against, if the schedule had broken differently, like. I don't know if they'd have lost to Auburn, because obviously Missouri and Auburn are pretty close given the way they played. And you saw Auburn and LSU tonight. LSU escapes with the win. Jaden Daniels hurt at the end. Auburn did some just Crazy stuff there. They got real cute on first. I think it was first and goal, threw a pick, maybe second and goal. And then they muff the punt. They get it right back for the fumble, but then they throw a pick. It's just like they can't get out of their own way. Now, I realize we're bouncing around here, but I don't think Brian Harsin did anything to lose his job tonight.
No. They were up 14-0, right?
Yeah, they were.
And that's another example of what we were just talking about.
Twice that Brian Kelly's been the coach at LSU for 5 games. Twice he's been down 14-0 and won the game. And by the way, they almost won the Florida State game, which they were down.
Yeah. I was like doing the calculus of what. Yeah, you're right.
Mississippi State was the other one.
Yeah, that's good. Auburn and Mizzou last week was one of the best games I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was so bad.
And both of them looked exceedingly competent the following week against better opponents.
Yeah, I would think if you are a team that plays Georgia this year, especially, I'm looking at you, Tennessee, right now, you should feel pretty confident that you can do something against them because Missouri was gashing them up the middle. So Georgia's defense, while stocked with some very good athletes, I know Jalen Carter limped off at one point on Saturday, but Georgia's defense still has a bunch of very good athletes that are going to play in the NFL. But they are not the cohesive unit that they were last year, where they were just utterly dominant all the time. And the Oregon game looks more and more like the outlier with each game we watch. Now, maybe that changes. Maybe as the season goes along, they gel together, and all of a sudden, by the end of the season, they're dominant again. But if I'm Tennessee, if I'm Kentucky, if I'm Auburn this week, I don't feel like they're invincible by any stretch of the imagination.
So you take what you saw the last 2 weeks with Georgia and you alter your viewpoint of what you...
If it had happened once, I would have been like, that's their clunker. But it happened twice.
Right. I was like thinking too, because I did the college football mock a few weeks ago and I was talking to, members of the committee. And I was like, how do you guys judge a team that comes out and you could just tell is sleepwalking? They've got, muffed kicks and turnovers and their body languages. They don't want to be there.
Georgia was sloppy as hell.
It was just like, those games. If you're a fan of a powerhouse, you know what they look like. How do you judge that? And the response I got from the playoff committee chair, Boo Corrigan, was that good teams shouldn't look like that. So like the committee actually does take this into account as like, there's no mulligans here, or there's no, if you look like crap, then you are crap for that week.
Right.
And it's like, I agree with that. Like last week's Kent State game, we spent very little time discussing because it was just like, they didn't care.
They'll bounce back. Kirby will yell at them for a week, but they didn't. And that's where you go.
So that's why we're here.
The rest of the schedule now feels different. Now they can prove us wrong, as we've demonstrated. We're wrong quite a bit by looking like they looked against Oregon or South Carolina for the next few weeks. Like,
and
if
that's
they do
the question
we're
too.
going to be right back where we were.
You said they're playing Auburn and Vanderbilt next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then they play Florida, which maybe you change.
It's a rivalry game, but they should beat Florida.
But like if you look at Tennessee, and let's say Tennessee continues to win, and they're in a very good spot. I mean, they're playing Alabama in 2 weeks, so they probably will have a loss by then. And they're also playing Kentucky before, too. That's a really brutal month for Tennessee, by the way. At home against Alabama, or at LSU, at home against Alabama. Then you get UT Martin in the middle, then Kentucky, Georgia back-to-back. Does Georgia, are they playing that way because they don't respect their opponent and they're sleepwalking, or are they playing that way because they're susceptible to losing to a team that's going to have a big-time atmosphere that will likely be in the playoff discussion if they only have one loss by that point in time? Like, I have a very hard time parsing those two things.
I think they are a youngish team defensively. Offensively, they're older and more veteran. So there's not a lot of excuses for the way they played offensively for much of Saturday night. Defensively, they're a youngish team of really great athletes that at some point may congeal into a dominant group, but they're not there right now. So We saw that last.
So you don't think this is clunker, or is this warts exposed, or both?
You only get one clunker. Once there's a second one,
you only get one. That's a good question. You only get one clunker. Is that true?
I don't know. I've seen some. I'm trying to think of national title teams that I've covered pretty closely, and where their clunkers come. Usually, yeah, you get the one, and usually those teams don't have another one.
So so this was a bona fide clunker tonight. Georgia, Missouri.
Kent State was the clunker. This was
Kent State was not giving a shit. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I never thought about this. Is a very interesting discussion. I don't know that I agree with that.
Okay.
I think that if you don't care, then you're born to not care again. It's a matter of whether or not you're going to get paid for that clunker. Because you're not going to sit you don't even believe that. Like
so you think that Georgia just didn't care this week after getting ripped from stem to stern for playing like garbage against Kent State. You think they did? They came out and did not care if they played well or not, and did not respect their opponent.
I think they did not respect their opponent.
See, I find that very difficult to believe after what they did against Tennessee. I think they were trying and it wasn't working. And I think that, like I said,
if you think they were trying,
Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, that either gives me confidence or it's sort of the Ivan Drago, he's a man, he's not a machine.
But it's funny, though, because once they started getting into the situation where they could lose, all of a sudden, literally everything they did started working.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're better.
A quarter.
Yeah, because they're better.
Yeah. So you would think that would take over if they were really locked in earlier.
It did take over.
Earlier.
That's exactly what happened. It took over when it finally did.
I mean, it's an interesting theory. I'm very curious what the listeners think.
Yeah. It will be. This is going to be a very interesting season if this is what we're dealing with. Now,
Joshua in the comments, I was thinking about this the whole time, and I didn't know if it was an appropriate comparison, but he said it, and I want to bring it up. What about 2002 Ohio State?
They did play a lot of close games. I'll give you another one.
Almost lost every game on their schedule.
Yeah, I'll give you another one. 06 Florida. Like I remember when 06 Florida was put into the national title game. I was a beat writer covering that team, and I remember looking at the other beat writers and be like, "This team's playing for the national title," and they ended up smoking Ohio State for the title.
Yeah,
but like if you haven't covered that team the whole season, you're like, "How is this team playing for the title?"
See, Shub here, Shub 22, put that one up. A little bit lower. Sorry, the other one. A playoff team doesn't fart around and win by 14 over Kent State. Okay, so they're not a playoff team anymore?
Except they might be one.
They're absolutely going to – I don't know. I guess maybe absolutely not. There is doubt.
They're capable of it.
If you would have said, do you think Georgia's going to make the playoff to me this morning, I'd be like, what are you talking about? What are you asking me? Now I think there's a 10% chance of 10% chance that they might have some issues that we're going to discover.
So another question from Joshua in our live chat. Ari, how much of the last 2 weeks reminds you of 2015 Ohio State?
Yeah, so the idea of like you only get one clunker, right? So 2015,
well, they had their clunker against the exact wrong team.
But their entire season was a clunker. If you go back and look week to week.
True. That's true.
And it's just like, but maybe you're right. Like, does that prove your theory then that a team that farts around every single weekend is eventually not going to make the playoff, and they don't get one clunker because it proved to be the thing that kept them out of the playoff, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might actually, I think, proves your
2014 Ohio State, their clunker was they lost to Virginia Tech, and it wasn't a good Virginia Tech team, but then they got better every week.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to think of because Alabama rarely has them. Mm-hmm. Unless you can make the case that Alabama's clunker was against Texas.
I would definitely make that case.
So, that I think that was.
So, and Alabama lost Bryce Young on Saturday. Let's hear Nick Saban after the game talking about Bryce Young.
I don't know. I was going to call Jimbo afterwards and tell him exactly what we're going to do.
We have to adjust on the fly.
So, if he can hear it in the press conference, then I don't have to call him. So, there are things that Jalen does well. We practice some of those things, and if he has to play, we'll practice him more. So, but I thought he did a good job of managing the game today, and gave our team a chance to win. We scored how many points with him playing quarterback? We had 14 when Bryce was in there, and the rest was when he was in there. So it wasn't all bad.
So it's 35 points with Jalen Milroe to do the math for Coach Saban there. But it sounds like they think Bryce Young might be back for Texas A&M. It was an AC joint injury. He went down on the side. Gets driven down, kind of tries to brace himself with his right arm, comes up grabbing his shoulder, kept playing. The next time he threw, he grabs his shoulder again, and then he goes off the sideline, like chucks his helmet down in frustration. So we'll see if he comes back. But I thought that was a very interesting development on a day when it wasn't great for quarterbacks. You had him go down, you had Jaden Daniels down, out of the game at the end of the LSU Auburn game. You saw Dylan Gabriel scary hit. He gives himself up, and then TCU player hits him anyway and smacks him in the head, and his head hits the turf.
Felt like the Tua thing kind of set the tone for the weekend, right?
Very similar. Yeah.
It's like interesting too, because I don't know if it's the same injury. It probably isn't, but the Quinn Ewers injury kind of landing on it that way too.
Yeah.
And I know that throwing motions and collarbones and all the things that you could do when you land that way, but it's just like against Alabama that happened, and now they're dealing with something on their own. But we're going to be at that game next weekend, so it might be a little bit interesting.
It will be very interesting. So before we're going to pause and then talk about some other stuff. We're going to move off the playoff contender type teams, but we are going to that Alabama Texas A&M game. So let's talk about the Aggies and Mississippi State before we move on to the other things. Texas A&M got destroyed by Mississippi State. Everything I said about what I thought was going to happen in this game was totally wrong. Texas A&M could not get pressure on Will Rogers. He picked them apart. I kept saying, what happens if Mississippi State would ever get yak yards in a game? You saw it.
Yep.
They did. And then Texas A&M's offense, just ineffective. Another quarterback who got hurt, Max Johnson, looked like he hurt his thumb or his finger or his hand on his non-throwing hand. He comes out. Haynes King comes in. Didn't matter. That offense is not great. And listen, they owe Jimbo Fisher $85 million. He ain't going anywhere. So that's a frustrating spot to be in right now.
Yeah, and you know what, man? I saw it up front last weekend, and I was there, and I get to see the Aggies twice in 3 weeks because they're going to the game this weekend. But that is just what it is right now. And I think the question isn't like what can be done to salvage what's going to happen this year. I think the question is, what does Jimbo Fisher have to do in order to remedy this so it doesn't bleed into next year?
Well, here's the thing. It's year 5. You've guaranteed this guy $1 bajillion. There ain't no wait till next year's anymore. That's done. Like, there's no, this is a bridge year. You're supposed to be good every freaking year when you pay somebody that much money and it's year 5.
Yeah.
You have no excuses.
It's like my whole thing has always been like A&M is building it. They're building it. They finally did something that they broke through last year. They're going to build it, and they're going to build it. But that is a very astute point. And it's the same thing that you say to Texas fans. And I know that Sark isn't as deep into his tenure as Jimbo is. But, you can't, if you're a Texas fan, say, hey, if we had Quinn, we're 4-0. It's like your entire program. No,
you should dominate Texas Tech anyway.
18-year-old boy is okay, or man that hasn't played yet, healthy. That's the program right there.
Yeah,
and that's the thing too. It's just like this isn't a coincidence anymore, to borrow from my father, and it's just like there's something that needs to be done in a drastic fashion. And if you go back and look at a lot of the best coaches in college football over the course of the past 10 years, they've been the ones that have done the best at identifying and remedying issues.
Yes.
There's no lack of urgency with them.
They don't have the same problems over and over.
Yeah, you can't have the same problem over and over again. And it's going to continue. It's like, I honestly don't know if A&M will be able to score next weekend.
Well, It's funny because I just go back to last year. That was the one game they could. So maybe, but I don't know. It's very strange. Like, there's no excuse for this. I had Aggie fans mad at me because I said, has Evan Stewart gotten a ball thrown to him in stride since he was in high school during a game? And they said, he dropped 5 passes. Wide receiver 1 shouldn't drop 5 passes. I'm like, no, true freshmen shouldn't be relied upon to be wide receiver 1 in year 5.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Even if they're as good as he is.
Right. And by the way, not hitting stride. I tweeted that right after they threw it behind him. It got intercepted by Emmanuel Forbes. There was the one in the end zone where he's wide open. If Johnson just flicks it to him, it's a touchdown. But Johnson throws 100 miles an hour behind him and he drops it. And should Evan Stewart catch that? Sure, he should. Is there a much easier way to let him catch it? Yes, there is.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Texas A&M's quarterbacks can never make it easy on their receivers.
I texted this during the day. It's just like, and I don't know, maybe it's just the answer is he's not ready. But how far behind is Connor Wegman?
I don't know. I mean, you know how reps work in camp, though. So
if
you decided that Haynes King and Max Johnson were number 1 and number 2, then Connor probably didn't get a lot of reps. And
then during game week, there's just no reps to be had.
No, there's no time.
Your starter. Right.
Yeah.
So, that could be the case. It's just like, I can't imagine it could be worse.
We got to pause because we're going to head to the Big 12 where things are getting really, really interesting. We'll be right back. Got a new Rowback hoodie, and I got to admit, I like this one even more than my first one. My first one was gray. It's really cool. This one's green. But the problem is I only got the one. And so I've got to hide it. Otherwise, my wife's going to grab it, steal it. It's gone. Why? Because this is the most comfortable hoodie ever made. Rowback's performance hoodies are the most comfortable hoodies out there. They're lightweight, but also so soft that you can't take them off. And really, you don't want to take them off because they will get stolen. So you may as well just get 2. But it's not just the hoodies. Rowback's performance polos are outstanding. They've got a college line now where you got some state logos that look like college logos. The colors all blend together. And if you're a fan of a big school, you'll know, and everybody else will know too. Plus, the Rowback folks leading the NIL charge. They've got Will Anderson from Alabama, Bijan Robinson from Texas, Michael Meyer from Notre Dame helping out, spreading the word. They're making the everyday shorts now, which you will want to wear every single day. Oh, and they got joggers now too. If you see somebody rocking that little Rowback dog logo, just kind of give them a nod because you know you're in this club where you are wearing things that are infinitely more comfortable than what everybody else is wearing. Also, right now, when you go to rowback.com, use the code Andy for a generous 20% off all new customers through the end of this week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all polos, Q-zips, hoodies, and shorts with the code Andy. That's rowback.com and use the code Andy. And you may just order 2 hoodies because, again, somebody's going to swipe one. In a tiny apartment in Southern California, 2 college dropouts teamed up to create a watch company that broke all the rules. With fair prices, unexpected colors, clean and original designs, Movement grew into one of the fastest growing watch brands, shipping to over 160 countries across the globe. Now Movement has expanded into blue light glasses that protect your eyes from screens, minimalist jewelry, and more style essentials that don't break the bank, all designed out of their California headquarters. I've got the Raptor watch. It is spectacular. People see it and they say, whoa, where did you get that? And they assume I paid hundreds of dollars more than it costs at Movement because Movement is online. They own their process from start to finish, and they can give you a fair price. Also, I've got a leather card case that I actually started using to carry cash with because after the pandemic, I realized, oh, I should start carrying cash again. And it's great. It's clean. I don't have that George Costanza wallet feeling in my back pocket. I can throw this in my front pocket, and it just sort of blends in seamlessly. And I got my cash right there. If you want to elevate your look and style with great stuff that doesn't break the bank, then join the movement and get 15% off today with free shipping and free returns by going to mvmt.com/Andy. That's mvmt.com/Andy. 15% off today, free shipping, free returns. mvmt.com/Andy. Welcome back. Let's go to the Big 12, Ari. So much happening. Let's start with the happy news from Lawrence. Kansas is 5-0 after a nail biter against Iowa State. So Kansas takes the lead. Iowa State on its first touchdown, bad snap. Holder runs the ball in for a 2-point conversion. That is the only reason Iowa State had a chance to kick to tie at the end of the game, but they miss it. Kansas is 5-0. Lance Leipold is the hottest coach in America, and College game day is coming to Kansas.
As they should. You know, what's funny is if I would have told you Kansas will not score a point in the second half against Iowa State and win, what would you have said?
Did Iowa State not come out in the second half? Like, I don't know. But you're right. They took that lead and they just held it for dear life. And it was something because I don't know how he's done this. They were so bad. And now
say it.
They're good. They're just good. Like, it's crazy.
The thing you have to consider here, Andy, too, is that their first 4 wins, 56 points, 55 points, 48 points, and 35 points. Mm-hmm. They won a game entirely differently than the first 4 against a team that is
of a good team,
painfully competent.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great win.
It is. You're exactly right. That is a great point, too. Good teams can win in multiple ways. They do not need the game to go exactly as they hope it will to win the game. And that is what Kansas did. And I can't wait to see them against TCU because TCU's offense has been good from the jump this season. Sonny Dykes has come in there.
Yeah.
They are just mauling people. And they had some huge plays today. Max Duggan getting it done with his legs and his arms, or, well, just the one arm. Well, probably both arms when he's trucking people. Oklahoma's defense is awful. Holy cow. That's bad. And you can say, well, Brent Venables' defense is complicated. No. If your defense is too complicated, simplify it. Don't go get smoked.
What does that
say?
Because
guess what? If Quinn Ewers is back next week, you're going to get destroyed by Texas if you play that kind of defense.
Brent Venables has been one of the best defensive minds in college football for the past 10 years, right?
Yes.
He didn't just stop being one of the best defensive minds in college football, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So what does that say about Oklahoma? And I want to get back to Kansas and TCU because they deserve our shine.
That it might be the people?
Is it the people?
That it might be the players? The talent?
Players?
Well, clearly he's not got the talent that he had at Clemson. We know that. But this is where he gets paid all that money for, is figure out how to make these players competent.
How many coverage breaks were in this game?
All of them.
Straight up, like, wide open receivers running around the field.
Yeah, all of them.
It's like that to me. It's like that's not players.
Right. And here's the other thing about it. Well, I'll give you the other little factoid that adds insult to injury. You do know who the offensive coordinator for TCU is, right?
I do.
Who is it?
Lincoln Riley's little brother.
Garrett Riley. That's right. So, yeah. Now, it's Sonny's offense, but still, that is just salt in the wound there. But you're right. They were.
Do you think that Oklahoma fans had a hard time with that?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. There were guys running wide open. You're exactly right. That if it is too complicated, if they can't master it, if they're in the wrong places, simplify it.
Did Garrett Riley
That's
get a
why
job
you get
today?
paid. Maybe. Perhaps Texas A&M could, because here's the thing. Like, Jimbo Fisher is going to be under a lot of pressure, and people are going to be like, Jimbo Fisher needs to stop calling plays. Jimbo Fisher's not going to stop calling plays. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's not going to get Gus Malzahn and be convinced into not calling plays. But what he may do at some point down the line is replace Darryl Dickey with a different offensive mind to kind of bounce things off of. And perhaps Garrett Riley is that type of person. But yes, I think a lot of teams will be looking at what TCU is doing and saying, how do we get a piece of that?
Young, handsome Riley brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's an attractive asset in today's world. But Sonny Dykes is a great offensive mind too. So let's not blow up too much smoke. But it has been fun to see Sonny Dykes tinker around with some Power 5 talent as well. You know, he had some really good teams at SMU, but he's a good coach.
He had some decent offenses at Cal too. It's
Did I say at TCU? I meant at SMU.
You said SMU, but
okay.
He was in the Power 5 at Cal and had some okay offenses. But I mean, TCU looked dominant. That's the thing. Because if you'd have told me TCU beat Oklahoma and Dylan Gabriel got hurt, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe Oklahoma's offense just couldn't get it going.
No, they just got.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter what Oklahoma's offense did.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, man. And I don't know if people realize this, but Max Duggan's a really good quarterback, and he's had a lot of injury stuff in his career, but he's a really good player when he's playing well.
Yeah, and I mean, he looked amazing on Saturday. They couldn't do anything with him.
Yeah. But back to Kansas. Can we just
let's go back to Kansas. Yes,
I feel like
Jalen Daniels for Heisman,
because we gravitated towards the big time brand, but so they have this nice little streak here. Do you give them a chance against this TCU team at home, or is this where the wheels fall off?
No, I give them a chance because of what we saw today. Because of the way they beat Iowa State.
I wonder if the spread's going to be like 14.
It might be. I don't know how much faith Vegas has in TCU yet either, though.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas.
Can I tell you who I think
more now?
Can I tell you who I think might really be the best team in the Big 12?
Somebody asked me that today at the birthday party, and I was like, I have no idea.
Can I tell you who my theory is after today?
Hit me with it, pal.
I think it's Oklahoma State.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Oklahoma State looked awesome against Baylor. Spencer Sanders has grown up as a quarterback because he used to make a lot of decisions where like, what are you doing? But it feels like those are fewer and farther between now. And, I'm not going to go as far as saying like he made the Kenny Pickett-like rise as a senior where Kenny Pickett, went from just, kind of okay to pretty good to first round talent. But I do think Spencer Sanders has grown up quite a bit.
I mean, I hope so. He's been in college for 12 years.
I know, but man, go watch the first touchdown Oklahoma State scored against Baylor. The touch on that ball. That's a veteran throw.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys are having the most Oklahoma State season ever, too, right now so far. It's like 4-0, have one weird win early on in their schedule because it's always weird. I remember when they had a few close calls with Tulsa. Then they beat the crap out of Arizona State, then Arkansas Pine Bluff, which isn't even a game. And then they start early in the Big 12 schedule with a ranked win. So, and then nobody's talking about them either. It's like Oklahoma State always sneaks up on you. It's like, wait, Oklahoma State's 7-0.
Well, guess what? Their defense is still great. Derek Mason replaced Jim Knowles, and the defense still looks very good. I know Baylor scored some toward the end, but Oklahoma State was in control of that game. And they also were capable of running the ball against that Baylor defensive line, which you don't see defensive lines like that very often in the Big 12.
Yeah. No, they've got my respect. They've got my attention, and they also have a pretty tough go of it the next month. So,
speaking of teams in the Big 12 that can run the ball, because let's also not forget these guys in the Big 12. And again, I keep saying the Big 12 is the most exciting league in America because literally anybody can win it. Maybe West Virginia can't, maybe not, but Kansas State looked great again against Texas Tech. Adrian Martinez had maybe the most efficient day he's had in his life.
Yeah, Kansas State's figuring it out again, huh?
Yeah, sure seems like it.
That
Tulane loss feels a long time ago, and it was only 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and guess what, Andy? It does not figure into the Big 12 race.
It does not.
So we have some more Big 12 craziness on the radar this year. But, I actually think that TCU would be a program that I would buy stock in. I think this is a program long-term, especially after the two big dogs in the Big 12 depart. I think that they would be my most attractive team, especially if I get to keep the coach that they have to be the new kings of that conference for the next in the race to be the kings of the conference.
Yeah.
I think TCU is probably the forefront there, or
I think TCU, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati when they get there. Probably.
I just think the combination of Sonny Dykes and Dallas in Fort Worth there, I think is a really good building block.
Yeah, I will say I really like the way Mike Gundy has handled at Oklahoma State all the turnover through the years, because they've kept the language the same. Offensively, the language has been the same since Dana Holgorsen was the OC. And they've so for the players, it doesn't change, even if the people calling the plays change. And they did the same thing defensively. Derek Mason came in, they said, okay, Derek, you learn their language instead of them learning your language. And look at how good that defense looked against Baylor.
Is Mike Gundy, like, what's your take on him? Like, what is Oklahoma State without him?
I think he's the modern day Bill Snyder.
I think that's an astute point.
I think he does more with less, and he knows what they are. He recruits to what they are, and they've got they know exactly what they're looking for.
Every team is never terrible.
Nope. Now, I will say there's a guy behind the scenes who's very important at Oklahoma State named Rob Glass. He's the strength coach there, and I realize we always glorify the strength coach. I will tell you from personal experience that Rob Glass is a great strength coach. Like Jerry Schmidt, who's the strength coach at Oklahoma now, was the head guy when I was walking at Florida. Rob was his number 2. They're both very good strength coaches. I got to see Rob, in action a little bit longer because I was a beat writer when he was the head strength coach at Florida. And he gets a lot out of people and is kind of the consigliere to the head coach and the head psychologist and you name it. So the fact that those two have been together, Mike Gundy and Rob Glass have been together the entire time, I think that means a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the strength coach is always the guy sitting at the edge of the couch in the offseason trying to help you work through your roster too, right? Mm-hmm. I think people think that it's just the guy that roster.
Yeah, he knows that roster better than anybody. And Rob's good at he's tough on people, but I just remember him being the kind of guy that he kind of understood when to pull back and when to go hard on somebody. And
I could not imagine going through one of those, Andy.
I mean, Rob was running me through one. I just barfed all over the weight room floor at one point.
What do you have to do to get to because I've vomited from drinking too much. Fun fact, I've even vomited from eating too much. I've never vomited from working out too hard.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few times, but
what has to happen for you to barf?
You just overexert. Like you don't rest enough to get everything settled back down. Now, I might have had some dining hall bacon before that, and that was a mistake I never made again.
Yeah, you were the one who was drinking 2-liter Mountain Dews before bed, right?
Yeah, but then I got very bland before workouts after that incident.
Okay. Yeah, I went through a boot camp, and I'm going to be doing boot camps more often. And I was like, what is it like to just be in a college weightlifting program?
They're hard. The workouts are very hard, and there's a lot of volume.
You're not just leisurely lifting weights. You're getting your ass kicked by somebody screaming in your face.
There's a lot of cardio. A lot of it is you're also doing your cardio while lifting. Now, I know there's also off season. There's some running and county fair type stuff, but especially in season, the workout is paced in such a way that you are also getting more cardiovascular capability.
Yeah, because it's like you're supersetting everything.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I learned the term superset when I got to college. So that's the thing. I mean, and Rob is just the psychology piece of what Rob does, I think, has helped that program immensely. So
yeah,
that's where they're. But I like what Chris Kleiman's doing at K-State. That's the coaching in the Big 12 right now. Let's break this down. So Chris Kleiman, obviously a very good coach at North Dakota State, but has done a good job at K-State in a tough spot, replacing an absolute legend. Mike Gundy, we've just said, one of the more underrated jobs anybody's done in coaching, period. Sonny Dykes doing a great job at TCU. Lance Leipold
fit
is
there.
Yes, Lance Leipold, the hottest coach in America. Matt Campbell, I know everybody's mad at him right now.
Next man
Matt
up.
Campbell, he was still working miracles at Iowa. He was winning 9 games at Iowa State. Let's respect how hard that is. Dave Aranda won the Big 12 at Baylor last year. I mean, there's a lot of talent. And notice I haven't mentioned the Oklahoma or Texas coaches because they're TBD. We don't know yet.
Yeah. It is kind of funny when you kind of put it in that phrase, like the 2 major brands from the conference that are kicking the legs out from underneath it are like the teams that have the 2 most unknown coaches in the entire conference. Now, Neil Brown, I don't know what's going to happen with him.
Big buyout.
Well, I like him personally. I think he's awesome.
I do too. But that's a tough job. I don't know that even West Virginia fans appreciate how tough their job is.
Yeah. Seriously, it's like one of their major recruiting territories is Florida.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, you have to have a pipeline there. But so, I mean, that's what the Big 12 is going to be, the most wide open, exciting league. So how many teams do we think right now are still in the hunt for a Big 12 title? West Virginia has 2 conference losses at this point, so maybe we can take them out. But is it 9? Is the answer 9?
Yeah, so Kansas, yes, right? Kansas State, yes. Oklahoma State, yes. TCU, yes. Texas Tech, yes. Only 1 loss. Baylor, yes. 1 loss, right?
Yep. I think the answer is 9. Iowa State has 2 conference losses now. They lost to Baylor and Kansas.
I guess Texas and Oklahoma. Well, no, Texas does, right? And
Texas
Iowa State's out.
Would
you say that the teams with 2 losses now are out?
I see. I don't know if does Iowa State feel out? Both the games they lost were very close.
I know. It's just a matter of whether or not the other teams at the top are going to cluster together. But I guess if they do, that plays.
OU has 2 losses, by the way.
OU does, yeah. And
do we feel like they're out? I mean, I think they're out if they lose to Texas.
I don't think that they are a team that won't lose twice more, at least, after what I saw on Saturday.
What if Mandel's prediction for the Big 12 is completely correct?
Have you been seeing like the
4-7 Texas or 4-8 Texas? I think he had Texas 4-8. I think that one's a little tough, but 7-5 Oklahoma seems in the realm of possibility. 5-7 Kansas would require them to lose their next 7 games. But he had to win 3 games in the league, which they only need to win 1 more for that.
Yeah. Did you see the big poker hand that is being talked about as a potential cheating scandal the last week? Do you follow?
Yes, I've been trying to understand. I don't understand poker that well. Can I give what my layman's version of what?
Yes, because I've been debating this with my brother who plays quite a bit.
So you've got very experienced professional poker player on one end,
one of the best on the planet. Yeah.
You've got somebody who is not very experienced, who tends to bet wildly and irrationally.
I know nothing about her, but she isn't a pro.
So she goes all in on a $100,000 pot.
No, he goes.
Oh, he goes all in, and she calls.
And he goes all in on a bluff, semi bluff, because when he goes all in, he's got an open-ended straight flush draw. So he's got outs
and she's got jack high, but there's nothing. There's very little chance that she's going to get anything that we would consider good, like a straight or a full house or something.
She called on the river when all the cards were out, I think.
Oh, okay. So
and so she called him down $130,000 with jack high. And like the way that Garrett Adelstein reacted to it, because he plays these high stake, you look at him, he goes, "There's something wrong here." And like, I don't know what made me bring this up because we were talking about it earlier, but it almost kind of feels like, that's kind of what made me think about this.
I don't know, but hopefully you'll get there.
We will get there. But it is one of those things of just.
But she offered to give the money back, right? She won the pot. She offered to give the money back.
Why would you do that?
Right, and the assumption is she was cheating because that's why she did that.
Because there's no person who is smart or dumb enough to do that.
It doesn't make any sense.
There's no, because your hand there's nothing. You've got nothing.
Right.
And there's nothing to do.
Because he was bluffing, and all she had to say was, I was also bluffing.
But you don't call when you're bluffing.
Bluff.
There's no such thing as bluffing. She called. The hand was over. She flipped her cards over.
Oh.
There was no moves to be made. It'd be like me.
But did she not have a better hand than him?
She did, but her hand was so terrible that you could not possibly fathom why she would make that decision.
So it's sort of like Garrett Mevis missing a 26-yarder to beat Auburn, yet making a 55-yarder against Georgia. Because sometimes weird stuff happens.
Yeah, it just was a very weird situation. So the Big 12, we were talking about something that made me think about that, but I've lost it. I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay.
It'll come back.
Weird things will happen in the Big 12.
And there was also a chess player that was.
That.
Did you see the chess thing too?
I did see the chess thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about something that is the opposite of chess when we come back. That is Big Ten football. There's some ugliness going on in the Big Ten, and it's not just Ryan Day and Greg Schiano trying to fight it out on the field. We'll be right back. One of the hardest parts of getting older is that next morning after you've had something to drink. Used to be you could bounce back, but the older you get, the tougher that gets. But there is a tool that can help make those mornings better and make the rest of that day better. It's called ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. So remember to drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, then drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give ZBiotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/Andy to get 15% off your first order when you use Andy at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. And hey, Halloween is right around the corner. If it's anything like my neighborhood, you know you're going to get after it pretty hard. So ZBiotics is the way to go. You want to give it a try? Go to zbiotics.com/Andy and get 15% off your first order when you use the code Andy at checkout. That's zbiotics.com/Andy, code Andy at checkout. Let us move to the Big Ten, Ari Wasserman, because we did spend an entire episode positing that Brett Bielema would go to Madison and out Wisconsin with Illinois. We did not mention, however, that Jeff Brom might take Purdue to Minnesota and out Gopher the Gophers, which is exactly what they did. They played Minnesota's game and beat them at it.
Yeah, beat them up pretty good too. Now, Mo Ibrahim didn't play, right? So like that, correct. I don't know if that counts for anything.
Not an excuse. Aiden O'Connell was banged up. I think but he played.
You can't say somebody's a dark horse to win the Big Ten West 2 days ago and then them laying 10 points on the road and then only putting up 10 total or at home, right? They were at home, right? So
they were at home. Yes. And they had some moments. They had a pass that bounced off a receiver's hands in the end zone that turned into an interception. So yeah, it's a huge swing, but there's no excuse for that. Like, you want to win the West, you got to win games like that.
You know what's funny? Go ahead.
I was going to say, and now, are we sure Illinois is not the team to beat in the West? I know they lost to Indiana, and I know the Illinois fans are saying that's a bad call, but are we not sure? I mean, could they not beat every other team in the West right now?
Dan Santa Romita, one of our gambling experts at The Athletic, texted me today, and he wanted me to talk about it on the show. I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
How many teams from the Big Ten East do you think would win the Big Ten West?
Well, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and maybe Maryland.
I think you could make the case that it's 4.
Who's the other one?
Ohio State.
Oh, Michigan, Penn State, and Maryland.
Michigan, Penn State, Maryland. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, not Michigan State, which is another somebody's owed $95 million, and you're stuck with it.
I think it might be 4. Other people think it's 4. Something fun to think about. But we talked about what would happen if Illinois went into Wisconsin and out Wisconsin and kicked their butts? Like, did that change your thought process at all about the discussion that we had a few days ago, and in terms of like what they have to do in Madison now?
Well, I said if Wisconsin or if Illinois comes in and out Wisconsin's them, you got to ask some very hard questions.
Yes,
and
especially if it happens the hard questions phase.
Yeah, especially if it happens again with somebody else. Like, let's say Jeff Brom takes Purdue and against Wisconsin, and because now we know Purdue can win games like that too. Like, let's say Purdue does that to them, or Minnesota does that to them, or Iowa does that to them.
Yeah,
I guess it's a little more forgivable if Iowa does that to you, but with that offense, I don't know. And I realize against Michigan, Iowa's offense sort of woke up a little bit in the second half, but
when
that kind of was right. That kind of was after the critical play where they had a 4th and short on the goal or near the goal line, and they not only committed offensive pass interference, but also threw short of the stick.
Yes, that was spontaneous combustion mode.
Yeah,
for me. Yeah, they just can't score. So they showed this graphic on TV too. If you were watching it, that just said like Iowa offensive metrics or whatever, and there were 3 categories and said last place. And
It should be noted, by the way, that the person who built that Oklahoma defense that we were talking about, or at least recruited the people, Arizona State scored 17 on USC in the first half.
Yeah, I know.
It's 21-17 USC.
Andy, I know we're an hour into this thing, and when we're done in the near future, I think I'm going to go watch the end of that game, and we might have to come back.
We might reconvene. Yes, we very well might reconvene, because this is not a game I expected USC to have trouble with. And if they do, well, yeah, we're going to have to talk about that. So this Big Ten discussion is interesting, though, because I do think Wisconsin probably needs to figure out what they want to be. I don't think you change the identity, but there are coaches out there who could bring that same physical identity, toughness. Now, you don't have to have the same offense to have a tough physical identity where you have really good offensive linemen like that. You don't have to run that specific offense. So like, you pushed back on me when I said Dave Aranda the other day, but the offense Baylor runs would work just fine.
Isn't he from California?
It doesn't matter where he's from.
I know, but that's what I meant. I didn't mean.
He did work at Wisconsin with great success.
He did.
So
yes, I know.
He's not from Texas either, and he's doing okay there. So,
I just picture whoever they hire next has lumberjack photos.
But what about Wisconsin Whitewater grad Lance Leipold?
I think what he's doing in Kansas makes him a candidate for every job.
Every job. Like, listen, being in the Lance Leipold business in the next 2 months is going to be very lucrative, because either Kansas is going to pay him a bunch of money or somebody else is going to pay him a bunch of money.
Yeah, no, good for him, man. Really, I know, honestly, good for him. It's like, I don't know how anybody could look at the bill that he's done there and be like, he's not a candidate for this job.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing.
In year 1.
I don't know that Wisconsin. This is year 2 for
year 2. Sorry, year 2. But year 1, they were much better, weren't they?
They were. They beat Texas.
Yeah,
but I don't see Wisconsin is not a knee-jerk type program. It's not a knee-jerk university. Like,
no,
nothing about them screams we're going to make a change. Yeah. But if they have 2 or 3 more days like Saturday, maybe just it might only take 2 more. They're going to make a change. Like, they will.
Think?
Yeah. They're about to get a buttload of money from the new Big Ten TV deal. So that's not the problem. It's just how much do you want to fall behind?
I don't know if They just they're kind up there,
They are kind. But they also appreciate the finer things, like cheese and beer and beef
and winning.
And they've won a lot.
They have.
And you can have the identity that Barry Alvarez brought.
Yeah, you can
without
be a
necessarily the same
team without lining up in the eye too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are many ways to use talented offensive linemen.
Right.
Many, many, many ways. So I just don't know if you can put up with more of that, because that
is rock bottom. It feels like.
I think so, because it's the guy who you said we don't need him anymore. He left. We don't need him.
Very early in his tenure at a place that was deemed hopeless.
Yeah. Yep. And Illinois is not hopeless. Illinois just took it to them. And it was interesting because Wisconsin went right down the field and scored. And they had a nice return to help. But then it was just all Illinois from there on.
Is Brett Bielema going to be popping up in coaching candidate situations, or when is that going to start happening?
There's a certain conference he's proven he's very good at coaching in.
And there's a certain conference that has some high profile. I'm not even going to say it.
Oh? You're going to put Brett Bielema at Nebraska?
Even more juicy. Keep going. He's
where else? Iowa. You're going to bring him home.
Is it because it's almost midnight here for me and 12:30 for you, or am I onto something there? Could that matriculate in 3-4 years?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Kirk Ferentz is in any trouble. So he would just have to decide he wants to retire.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because the thing about Iowa, the way they played today against Michigan, especially the way their defense bowed up after getting mauled on the first drive, they're still going to beat most teams they play.
Yeah, I guess.
That's the thing. Now, if Brett goes in there and whips them, maybe that's a different story. I don't know. I say goes in there. I don't know where that game is this year.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just delirious, Andy. I like to think about fun scenarios. One, Bert to Wisconsin again would be great. And Jesse's like, that could never happen. And you said that too.
The bridges have been burned for sure.
But
as Keith Olbermann once said of ESPN, the bridges were napalm.
Would he crawl to Iowa City if that ever presented itself?
Well, I think they'd send a jet. So, by the way, that game's in Champaign. It is next week.
Okay.
There's a lot going on next week, Kari. There's a lot going on.
Did the Big Ten or did College Game Day pick their game too quickly?
Nope.
Illinois is like one weird overturned touchdown away from being undefeated, right?
Ari, they had a chance to go to Kansas. Joe Tessitore hosts a show with Rob Riggle, noted giant Kansas fan, so obvious guest picker there. This is too easy.
It was too easy. And if they would have passed on them again, everybody would be like, what the hell, dude? They had no choice because there was so much outrage last week. Could you imagine a 5-0 versus 5-0 matchup?
Oh my goodness! If they
after
Texas A&M got
Tuscaloosa,
after Texas A&M got destroyed by Mississippi State, if they had picked Alabama, Texas A&M, there would have been a riot.
It would have been. It would have been. Everybody would be like, "This is stupid."
Yeah. No, you've got to go to Lawrence. You have got to do this. I cannot wait. Now they wasted their Lance Leipold feature this week. So
run it again.
Yeah, why not? You got 3 hours to fill.
Okay, well,
Corso was sick, so I hope he's back. There's a giant Jayhawk head, right? That's what we're putting on.
I hope so.
I mean, that horned frog head is pretty cool too.
Do you imagine that Jayhawk head appearing in your bedroom window at 2 a.m?
Oh, that's terrifying.
I do like to think about terrifying mascots in your bedroom late at night. If you haven't noticed, this is the third time.
Big Red from Western Kentucky, like just peering over you as you sleep.
No, I think
you open one eye and there he is.
What's the
Pistol Pete from Oklahoma State? The giant plastic head.
What do you think is the most terrifying mascot that could show up in your bedroom during the wee hours of the night?
Purdue Pete, easily.
I agree. That's just what I was going to say.
No question. Purdue Pete.
It's terrifying. Well,
does he have the hammer?
Providence's.
Oh, the Providence Friar. Oh,
yeah,
God.
that'd be terrifying.
Oh, my God. That is awful. Oh, the Wake Forest Demon Deacon.
Yeah, those three are the three, I think.
By the way, we do need to talk a little more ACC. We did talk Clemson and NC State. Clemson's good. DJ's good. I'm sorry, DJ. I take it all back.
He's good.
I'm not mentioning Cade Klubnik again. Sorry. You're good.
Sparky the Sun Devil would also be scary.
Terrifying. Yes.
Because that could mean a lot of different things.
Also, the devil from Duke.
Wait, so you're 100% back in then on DJ?
Yeah.
No questions asked? Okay.
I'm in. Yep. I am in.
Undefeated playoff team.
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm in on DJ.
Well, that's the missing link there, isn't it?
Not really. I mean, if they have some injuries, like they had Brian Brisset didn't play today, so you don't know what's going to happen. Like Will Shipley got hurt last year, so. Yeah. But I do think
I didn't mean like if somebody gets hurt. I'm just saying like
I think
today was a playoff team.
The clear favorite to win the ACC, and if you win the ACC as an undefeated or one-loss team, I think you got a real good shot.
If I put you on the spot and make you give us your top 5 in order, could you do it right now, or do you need time to think about it?
I mean, top 3 would be Alabama or Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State. Some order. I don't know what order. Ohio State might be one.
That's the fun part. Yeah.
Well, okay, fine. Ohio State. I'll be a prisoner of the moment. Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Kansas. I don't know.
Kansas. Your face. That face in your bedroom in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know who the 5th one would be right now.
Well, we'll talk about it on Tuesday.
Well, no, I think we might need to have the Andy Staples Show computer laptop organized Win Nexus.
Yeah, well, especially if USC doesn't get it together. So I like your face. I hope I don't see it again tonight.
Kansas.
A
10. I give it a 10.
10, Kansas.
One more ACC game I want to mention. Wake Forest looked really good coming off that Clemson loss.
Yep.
They go down to Tallahassee, took a big lead. Florida State fought back, but incredible 4-minute drill by the Demon Deacons to salt the game away. So I think they're probably just good too. Like I
felt bad that the Florida State run kind of ended, but Wake Forest is actually good. So,
yep. And Catherine mentions Michigan. Have we talked? We probably didn't talk as much as we could have about Michigan. First drive, I was like, oh my God, if they can do this to Iowa and they do this all game.
I thought that it was like we were on pace for the Ari Wasserman called it for Michigan to cover the over by itself, but it's kind of petered out.
Yeah. By the way, the number on that game is 42. Kirk kicks the extra point to total 41.
It's a damn shame.
There was I don't think there was any advantage to going for 2 at that point, but I just found it very funny. But Michigan, if they had kept that up the whole game, I'd have been like, Michigan's playoff team. Watch out, Ohio State. Like this is maybe the Big Ten gets 2 in, but they slowed down. Iowa did look like Iowa's defense again.
Well, Iowa's defense did not score a defensive touchdown in this game. So
they didn't, which is maybe that is we should give Michigan's offense credit for that.
You had one defensive touchdown in there in the second quarter, and you might have a football game there at the end of the third.
Good point. Very good point. No, I thought Michigan looked remarkably, just relentlessly competent. Which, you know what? That's a good thing to be. Like I didn't think Georgia looked like that tonight.
Nope.
There were times Alabama didn't look like that, although they got it together.
It's a successful weekend, Andy, because it's more context, and every week we get more and more of it, and it makes the show more and more fun.
Yes, and here's the thing. It's fun from top to bottom. Like, the Sun Belt continues to be awesome. The Raging Cajuns are good, and they're 0-2 because the league's just crazy. Troy won on a walk-off, I think. And then Coastal Carolina beat Georgia Southern when a dude hurdled a guy. Like, not like hurdled like an Olympic hurdler, like jumped, put his foot on his helmet, and continued running like Mario jumping on a what are they called? Goombas? Like
Koopas.
It was incredible.
Koopas, right?
Koopa Troopas. Yeah, that guy.
Koopa
One of those guys.
Yeah. Ugh. What a day.
That was unbelievable. Just it just never stops. So
also, don't sleep on UCLA as a top 10 team.
UCLA looked fantastic against Washington. That offense was, and you did call it. You on our Friday show, you said when UCLA really gets rolling, they are very tough to stop. And some of those times when they were handing off to Charbonnet, I was like, oh God, like Washington has no chance here.
Could you imagine if he was still on Michigan's roster and you had a duo with him and Corum?
With him, Blake Corum? Oh, man.
That would have been nasty.
It'd be unfair. But no, I thought UCLA looked great. And, you know, it was tough. When you watched them against South Alabama a few weeks ago, it was like, I don't know. This doesn't look good.
And listen, their defense is going to be shaky when they play big. They're not. I don't know if they're actually a top 10 team, but you know, anytime a Chip Kelly team gets to 5-0, you got to pay attention.
Well, he always talked about watering the bamboo, and you don't see it, you don't see it, you don't see it, and finally you see it. Well, maybe we're seeing it, but Catherine points out Goombas are the little brown guys, Koopas are the little turtles. So we're both right.
Yeah, I don't remember the word Goomba.
I believe it's a anti-Italian thing.
Oh, good. So, well, that's how I hope we would end the show.
Yeah, by insulting a certain nationality. Well, I mean Mario and Luigi are as well. So my guess is Mario and that is the derogatory term that Mario and Luigi called them. So.
Oh, I get it. Okay, yeah. Okay. So we'll have to Google that.
Yes, I don't remember it coming up on The Sopranos, but it might have.
Gabagool did.
Gabagool definitely did. We're already an hour and 16 minutes into this, so if you're here still listening, you're one of us. You're in the trust tree. So that was right when I started the calorie count when I was binging The Sopranos. They're eating in practically every scene. Like they are eating cured meat or pasta in 75% of the scenes in that show, and I got so hungry.
I mean, it's the same thing watching Goodfellas. I mean, when they were
because I was starving myself.
You know, in Goodfellas when they went to prison and they got that scene where they're shaving the garlic.
The garlic, razor thin.
It's like prison doesn't seem so bad.
Well, yes, if you're in the mob and you're connected.
You get to be in there, and if they bring in pasta tabanara, just kind of line it up, you know?
Only you would think that.
Oh.
All right. Ari, it has been a pleasure. We might be reconvening.
Yeah, Caleb just threw a pick in the end zone, so
if you don't hear from us again, it means USC held on and won this thing. If you hear from us again, well, it'll be at the beginning of the show, so you will have already heard it. Good night, everybody. We love you.